Okay, a lovely piece of meat for your Sunday roast is a top side. A lot of people avoid it because they don't really know what to do with it. So when they cook it, it sometimes seems a little bit tough or it seems a little bit dry. If you go to your local supermarket and you pick up a roasting joint, because they tend not to put a description of what it actually is, they put frying steak, braising steak and roasting joints on there, chances are it'll be a top side or a silver side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass you over to Tom and he's going to explain to you what they've done to this piece of meat before we stick it in the oven, because the top side doesn't really have a lot of fat on it. So these guys have to work with it a little bit. So Tom, tell me what we did with this.
So this top side here is off the hindquarter of beef, and because it's such a lean cut of beef, we put a bit of fat on there, a layer of fat on there, which will keep the moisture in the meat.
So you take a piece of beef fat from another part of the animal and then tie it onto there?
Cut it down and then bash it out, so you've got a nice even bit of fat layering the top side, and that'll keep all the juices and everything inside.
And that'll melt away, won't it? It'll melt through the meat and keep the moisture in there.
Yeah,
You're not going to be left with that big lump of fat on the top.
And then you got all the strings in there. So once it's cooked, you just take away the strings, and then you can easy to carve. I mean, this has been hung for 21 days at least, so it's draining away all the blood, and that will keep it tender.
Perfect. So for me, I like my beef rare, so you can use a variety of ways of checking it. You can buy these little digital probes in all the cook shops and stuff now or off the internet. You can use one of these probes that you stick in it and stick it in the oven, and it'll tell you everything from rare through to well done. All you have to do is watch it go around. It's kind of spring loaded, it works on the heat, so you can stick one of those in if you're not too sure. If you've got a posh all singing all dancing oven, some of them have a probe in and you can program it and do all the other shiny bits. But what we're going to do is we're going to use this spring loaded one. So into an oven tray, nice and simply, a little bit of oil.
Yeah.
Very, very simple this. We're not messing around with it too much. I know you've got that little bit of fat on the top there, but this oil's going to act as a little bit of a glue. So if I rub that on there.
So when you say a bit of a glue,
it's going to hold the salt and pepper on for us.
Right.
So we're just going to give it a little bit of a massage. Show it a bit of love.
Look like you're enjoying that.
A little bit of love. Don't enjoy it too much though, okay? So if you can just put a little bit of salt and pepper on there, so I don't muck up the grinders. And then we're going to put that in the oven at 170, and we're just going to allow that to seal up. You could seal it up on the stove and get it all like ground up like the shoulder of lamb, but I don't think we need to do that. I'd like to get it in the oven and we'll get it roasted out so it's nice and rare. Now the thing to remember is to rest it for at least half the length of time that you cook it for. It gives that meat chance to relax and just get those juices going back into the meat and all sort of mingle and get easier to carve, because the problem is that people say it's tough because they haven't left it to rest for long enough. They rush around on a Sunday morning, they whack the meat out of the oven at 12:15 and expect to be able to slice it at 20 past. If you do this nice and early on and get it out the oven at 11, then put your roast potatoes in, then put your Yorkies in, and just cover that with a bit of tin foil and leave it alone. It'll be absolutely perfect come 12:30. It doesn't need to be red hot. Warm plates, warm vegetables, warm Yorkies, warm sauce. Perfect. Doesn't have to be red hot. If it's screaming hot, it's going to be tough.
So those muscles there, when it's come out of the oven, I'm imagining they're all tightened together like that.
Yeah.
And when you're resting, they slowly just separate.
Absolutely. A chef friend of mine, when I was training to be a chef, explained it to me like this. If I had a red hot pan and I stuck your backside in that pan, you'd go like that.
Yeah.
But after an hour or two, when I took you back out of that pan, it would all start to relax again. You have to think about it the same way. You have to think about that thing of heat makes it all contract and go all tight like this, and it's pushing all the juices out. And then as it relaxes again and the fibers start to open up, it allows those juices back in and makes it so much easier to slice. The other big giveaway that the meat hasn't been rested for long enough is you get these rings. So if you're looking at the meat through that way, you'll get brown, then you'll get lighter brown, then you'll get pink, and then it'll almost look raw in the center. And that's because it hasn't had a chance to just relax and just kind of find its way a little bit and ease up coming out of that hot oven. If you're not resting the meat properly, it's going to be rubbish.
Yeah, tough.
It doesn't matter how good a piece of meat you buy.
Okay.
So the last little thing to do is stick our probe in, because we're going to cheat today. We've got lots to do, and we just want a really sort of easy way of knowing when it's done. Thickest part of the meat, straight in, like so.
So what, are you going straight down into the heart?
Yeah, you want to get to the center, okay? So you can either go in through there, so it's not sticking up in.
So that would be a good idea.
Into the grill.
So you can see it through.
You can see it through the door.
So you don't have to keep opening it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So we put it in a little bit of an angle. You can see that it's not even registering on there yet.
Yeah.
So what we want is sort of between 60 and 65.
Okay, so once it gets to 65, that's where you want
above
to be.
65, it'll start heading in towards medium rare, towards medium.
Yeah.
We want sort of rare to medium rare, because you've got to remember when we take this out, it's going to carry on cooking.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if we can get that in now, and we'll come back in about an hour and have a look at it. Perfect.
So 170, yeah?
170 is great. So nice and gently in there, perfect. And we can see that probe there, yeah?
Yeah, perfect.
Excellent. Right, so that beef's been in for about an hour and 20 minutes. I reckon it's probably worth having a little check. Okay. We want 65 to 70 degrees on the probe. Okay. If it's there, let's have it out and we'll get it resting up. So, probe's saying what? What do you reckon?
Just above 65.
Perfect, that's exactly what we're looking for. Nice and warm. I'll use a towel to take that out. So don't worry about cooking times and minutes per pound and all that kind of stuff. We've cheated and used one of these lovely little probes. All we've got to do now is leave it to relax for half an hour or 3/4 of an hour. We're just going to wrap a little bit of tin foil around it and just let all those juices start to come back together. Tom's grabbing the tin foil right now. We're going to come back and show you how to carve it. So don't go anywhere. Right, so we've given our beef plenty of time to rest now. I mean, it's just sat under there,
so what would you recommend resting? About half an hour?
About half the time you cook it for.
Right, okay.
You know, if you look at that, you can see the fat from the beef's actually gone hard.
Yeah.
So it is actually cold. The tray's cold enough to pick the meat up
still
quite easily. Well, yeah, I mean, it should be absolutely fine.
And what would you do with all these juices in the...
Right, well, if you look at that, that's basically all just pure beef stock. Tastes lovely. Now, you can either strain that off and make it into your gravy, so thicken it a little bit,
yeah,
or just tip that away into your jug, and this beef dripping that's in here, that beef fat that you put on the top of the joint earlier on, yeah, roast your vegetables in it, or roast your potatoes in it, spoonful of your goose fat in there. If you haven't got goose fat, then use that beef dripping. Right. All chippies in Britain used to use beef dripping for the chips. That's why they tasted so good. So, carving this, do you want to do it or do you want me to do it?
Well, I want to see from the chef point of view, how you serve it for, like you would in the restaurant. Right,
so for me, we would always take the string off,
okay,
before we started carving, because there's nothing worse than getting that in your Sunday lunch.
Being cooked, it's all held together, and that string is to hold it together for when it's going to cook. But that's been done now.
It's been done now. It's formed its shape up. It's going to sit. It's not going to have any problem at all. Look, I've took the strings off there. That's not coming apart, is it?
Yeah.
Now, if you like your meat nice and rare, cut the joint in half and work your way back to the outside edge. If you've got members of your family that like more well-done pieces, then obviously serve from the ends to them. So that's not tough at all. Look, I'm not putting hardly any pressure on there. Look, there you go. So there's your more well-done pieces coming off there, look. Lovely and rested. You can still see that there's lots of juice coming out of there, look.
And how would you know that it's well rested? What are you looking for?
I'm looking for a nice even colour all the way through, like so. I'm looking for a nice even texture when I feel it. It's not tight and hard, and it's not too loose, and there's no difference in the way it feels from one end of the joint to the other. So we've got these nice, and don't cut beef too thin. Don't cut roast meats too thinly. You want to cut them, you know, good 3 or 4 millimeters thick.
Yeah.
You don't want to be able to spit through it without it getting wet. You want a piece of meat that you can get your teeth into. So.
That's just falling away from the knife, isn't it?
Yeah, and going across the grain. Yeah. If you look, it just gently pulls apart. It's not tough at all. Look at that.
And that's still warm?
Well, look, you can see the steam coming off it. And also, you know what it needs? It needs a big lump of that horseradish. Can you sort that out while I wash my hands?
Yeah. Bit of Mrs. Darlington. Fantastic horseradish.
Is it hot, this horseradish? Because I don't like sweet horseradish. I want hot horseradish. If it makes my eyes sweat, then it's hot enough.
Right,
let's have a little go at this. Let me just get that cloth out of the way. There you go. And I'll carry on slicing through here. So, I mean, you can see it's not dry. It's not a dry, tough piece of meat. You can see all that juice on there. All right, it is cooked through. But for me,
Which is that spot on? How would you like it?
I'd like it a little bit more rare than this, but I understand that, you know, people are concerned about what they perceive to be blood in meat and this, that, and that it's raw and all that kind of stuff. So in the restaurant, we tend to cook 2 joints.
Oh, okay.
And we stage them. We put them in at slightly different times as well, so that they're not just sat there for the whole of service on a Sunday. So you want one coming out as one's going in. So we've got our lovely top side there, and I'm going to nick a bit of that fat because that's where the flavour is. I think it needs a little bit of salt and a little bit of this lovely horseradish. Look at that. All you need now, some Yorkies and roast potatoes there.
Spot on. It's
Happy
going
with
to make
that.
your eyes water then.
That's good, isn't it?
It's good stuff.
Really good. Perfect. Sunday roast. Happy days.